but the same aspects of energy conservation and survival apply to the brain as well. So think about the human heart. Your heart has been pumping since before the day you were born. Never taken a break. Never said, I'm tired today. I don't want to wake up. I don't want to go to work. Right? It has been working from the start. You have your intestines churning the food. You have all your skeletal muscles, obviously, moving your body, exercising, all of those things. Your diaphragm's been moving, other than when you hold your breath, your whole life to keep you breathing. And yet, the one organ that takes the most energy than any other organ in the human body is the brain. It takes 20% of your body's energy just to operate, just for basic function, not to think critically, not to figure out any problems, just to survive.
Welcome, guys, to another episode of the Bridging Divides podcast, where we bring you the advice, tools, and resources to help you build the bridge to success. Super excited to bring you our guest here today, Dr. Karthik Ramanan, goes by Dr. K. And so I was talking to him about that earlier, and he says it's pretty much, that's, you don't even recognize your own name almost at this point.
Just about.
At this point. So Dr. K is a really good friend of mine. I just absolutely love everything that he's doing. He's a naturopathic physician, and he is an emotional health specialist. So he's got some amazing things that he's working on right now, amazing services. We got a book that we're going to talk about. I'm super, super excited for this conversation. We've had several conversations in the past, but I'm so happy to bring it to the Bridging Divides audience because you are awesome. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too.
We've had so many great conversations off camera that we were thinking, why don't we just have a camera going this whole time? This would have been great.
100%. And one of the funniest things too, I remember. So Think Media, which we both have followed them.
Yeah.
So I started doing their video ranking academy. Sometime this year, as I'm kind of getting into this, and I'm going through their training modules and listening to their podcast, and they mentioned Dr. K, and I'm like, I mean, I know that there's got to be a lot of like doctors with the last name that starts with K, but I was like, could it be? And I'm going through and I see a video and I'm like, there you are, like what the heck? And so then we like chatted about that and everything. It was kind of fun to see, because you and I we were doing networking through Business Networking International, which I've talked to you guys about BNI all the time.
Right.
But it was kind of funny to see these other
It's a small world.
networks
It's
that
a
kind of
small world.
Yeah, it was so fun. So I love seeing that. But yeah, so super excited to get started here, and so let us know. So this is one of the most important questions. That's why we start with it. What is something that very few or no one knows about you?
Well, we can make it recent.
Okay.
As of 2 days ago, I probably would have struggled to do this podcast.
Really?
Because my voice was not in great shape because I went to see Metallica the night before.
Hey, there we go.
That was a great show that they put on for, it must have been like 70,000 fans at the stadium.
Could you
here.
imagine?
Just unbelievable.
Could you imagine doing anything in front of that many people?
I can't even. Yeah.
I'd be crapping my pants, man.
Yeah.
Like, could you Oh my gosh. I mean, they've been around the blocks. I mean,
They have like 42 years or something.
It's been a minute.
And it was an incredible show. So anyway, yes, big Metallica fan.
Oh,
so
dude, that's
that
fun.
might be the thing.
That's fun. Oh, I love that. Well, hey, so jumping right in here. So Bridging Divides, what we're all about is, we succeed together. Nobody is self-made. You don't do anything alone. Yes, you got to have initiative. You got to have drive. You got to, hard charge it. There's no arguing that.
Right.
But you got to make sure that you are recognizing the collaboration of everything that goes on. And so we highlight people that are doing something to bridge the divides around them and have bridged the divides in their own lives. And so tell us what divide or divides are you focused on bridging right now?
There are many. The bulk of my work is actually with companies these days, and helping individuals, the leaders, the owners, understand how to create an environment that fosters true emotional health. And more so than, let's say, a benefit program, just a true, how do you live up to the culture that we want to create in the workplace?
Right.
And so there's a divide there about, where do we want to be as a company and where are we right now? Because sometimes it's easy to say, oh, we have communication issues. How can you communicate with someone else if you don't even know how your own mind works, right? And so we get to the root cause of emotional health at the individual level, which allows teams to come together, understand each other better, communicate better, and really create an environment where people can go to work and feel like they're growing as people, and it's not just something they do to make a living. So that's one divide. But ultimately, I'd say on the individual level, it's bridging the divide between the life that we're living and the person that we want to be. Because when we have that divide, when we have that disparity, it seeps its way into every decision we make, every feeling that we have throughout the day. It's a root cause for so many symptoms that might look like procrastination, that might look like imposter syndrome, that might look like all these other things, not to mention, anxiety, depression, things like that are just absolutely rampant these days. And ultimately, how we do that is another way of bridging as well, which is how do we incorporate elements of what we were built for, which was nature, not this crazy world we live in, but how do we do that in a way that still we can live a modern life, but also acknowledge how our body and mind works so that we just give ourselves the best chance to live, joyful, fulfilled lives.
Absolutely. No, and I love that you talk about that because I am of the opinion that it's, we're a bunch of animals. I mean, we're part of nature,
Right.
and we need to recognize how we operate, how we work, how the brain works, all of that. But I also believe that we have evolved to a certain level to where we are cognizant of what it is that we're going through,
Right.
and we can rise above, say, those baser instincts.
Yeah.
Right. And not to take, I believe in God and all of that other stuff, but I see him more as the ultimate scientist, I think.
Yeah.
And so I'm very, very, I love finding the way that we interact with nature and the way that our bodies and minds work and how all of that goes together. I mean, so you're a naturopathic physician.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, you can definitely see how there are certain things that if we just take care of our body in the proper way,
Right.
that it will take care of a lot of the symptoms of
Right.
of our
And nothing
lives
is ever
now.
guaranteed,
Right.
But at the same time, there's certain things that we know hurt us. And so it's a matter of just saying, does this move me closer to the person that I want to be
Yeah.
or further away? Every food choice, every way that we decide to spend our time. Do I want to scroll TikTok for an hour or get an extra hour of sleep? Whatever it is, right? And just understanding, okay, why am I pulled in that direction?
Yeah.
How can I get maybe a little bit of a dose of that, but still have great sleep? Let's say you have 6 kids, right? I
Yes, I
imagine
do.
sleep is a commodity
I know.
in your household.
I don't know how many times my door opened up last night.
Oh, no.
I swear they all took turns, 2 or 3 times. Oh my
Take your
gosh.
ticket. Okay, I'm up for 2 a.m., right?
I should do that. Just put a little ticket thing outside.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start doing it. I'm
Oh,
talking to
there
my
you
wife
go.
about it.
There you go. Ration you get 1 ticket a month, and
I
make
like-
sure it counts.
I like that even better.
Anyway, but but even let's say you have a fixed time window of sleep, but then how can you maximize the quality? How can you set yourself up to have the best outcomes in whatever it is? Everything that we do is a choice that moves us closer to the person that we want to be or further away. And so when we're talking about that divide, right?
Yeah.
It's accumulation of a lot of choices, but before that, the things that drive our actions are the truths that we believe about ourselves and the world around us. And so we need to understand our own mind at an extremely deep level
Yeah.
in order to be able to navigate the craziness that is around us, whether it's at work, whether it's at home, whether it's just general society, whatever it is. We need those skills now more than ever.
100%.
Otherwise, it just becomes too overwhelming.
And that can be scary to delve deeper into
Right.
our minds, because I feel like so often we're just trying to survive.
Right.
And in order to do that, we can't, or we feel like we can't look deeper than just surface level, because then it means
What does that mean about
what
me?
what does that mean about me?
Yeah.
That it challenges the very foundation that you're
And
on.
and here's a fun fact about that, right? We're we are wired, like you said, for survival because again, nature. There's few elements of nature and living in nature. One, energy is scarce. It takes a lot of effort to go and obtain food in nature. So our bodies are designed to conserve energy, conserve water. We have all of these survival mechanisms built in. Nowadays, I mean, then it used to, okay, we had agriculture. We didn't have to go forage as much or things like that. Then, in the last 100 years, you get supermarkets and stuff like that. You could go buy your groceries, come home, make yourself dinner, takes even less energy. Then we had fast food chains, takes even less energy. Now, what a world. You don't even have to get your butt off the sofa.
I
Just
know.
take out your phone and magic in 45 minutes, you've got food at your front door. You don't even have to spend the energy to talk to the person. You've
They
just
leave
tipped
it
them
at the-
digitally and
I
it's
know.
right there.
I'm waiting for
You know?
it to be delivered to me on the couch, and they
Right.
just feed it to me.
Right. Yeah. That's the next
That's the
step.
next
Maybe
step.
we have robots that do that. I
Yeah,
don't
there
know.
you go.
But and so that's an example of how things are different than, and so but the same aspects of energy conservation and survival apply to the brain as well. So think about the human heart. Your heart has been pumping since before the day you were born. Never taken a break. Never said, I'm tired today. I don't want to wake up. I don't want to go to work. Right? It has been working from the start. You have your intestines churning the food. You have all your skeletal muscles, obviously, moving your body, exercising, all of those things. Your diaphragm's been moving, other than when you hold your breath, your whole life to keep you breathing. And yet, the one organ that takes the most energy than any other organ in the human body is the brain. It takes 20% of your body's energy just to operate, just
No
for
way.
basic function, not to think critically, not to figure out any problems, just to survive.
Dang.
That's 20%. So what is essentially happening every time that you think about what's for dinner, your body's deciding, do I want to spend 3 calories to make that decision? Oh, there's food on the other side. Yes, we'll do that. But then you go down the route of, let's say, do I really want to examine how I got here in life? Do I really want to deal with an issue with a parent and maybe forgiveness or things like that? Things that could fundamentally alter my view of the world? It's too much calories. It's too much effort.
For not enough
And
reward.
so that's why we stay stuck. Nothing is wrong with you. Nothing is wrong with me. Nothing is wrong with any one of us, right? It's how we were wired. But like you said, once you know that, that's when you can start to say, okay, I'm not going to place a judgment on this. I'm not going to say, oh, I can't believe you're such and such to yourself. Instead, you say, what do I have to do?
Right.
Who's the person that I want to be? What's the life that I want to live? And what is it going to take for me to get there? And if it means really diving into some of the truths that we have about ourselves, these belief systems, and this is beyond mindset stuff, right? This is beyond writing affirmations on the bathroom mirror or
Which is
doing
good,
a
don't get me
mindfulness.
wrong,
Yeah, like
but-
each one of those is a good tool, but it has to be within the context of something greater. And because that's how we make fundamental changes. We're not looking at it as simply a mindset hack. We're looking at it as a fundamental rewiring of our brains.
Oh yeah.
And that takes effort, that takes energy. But once you get to the other side of it, there's no going back. And then it becomes easy, just like being where we are right now is easy. Example.
You have a new baseline.
You have a new baseline. Yeah. Example. You remember the first time you learned how to drive? Or if you ever watched, a kid learn how to drive, right? Mm-hmm. If that was more recent. In the beginning, it's gripping the steering wheel.
10 and
looking
2.
At, yeah, 10 and 2. Oh, no, it's at 3, 2, right?
Yeah.
What's my speed? Am I in the lane? Mirrors. What's that guy doing? All these things. Now, we can drive home from the office and, oh, wow, I guess I'm
home. Yeah, you don't even...
you zoned out. Did you really zone out? No.
Right.
The human mind chunks data points, senses, right? Puts certain things together and essentially turns 5 operations into 1 operation. And so in doing so,
amazing.
It takes less energy, right? Until something breaks the habit. Like somebody cuts you off and you're like, oh, that normally doesn't happen. Now all of a sudden brings you back. You weren't actually tuned out. But the same way when you're driving somewhere new, right? So when my wife and I are going to a new restaurant in Scottsdale or whatever, right? And we're driving up there, and I'm driving, she's listening to her music. It's not my music, it's not Metallica, right? But it's something that I'm a little less familiar with. So my brain's processing what I'm listening to, even though I'm trying to tune that out and focus on the road or focus on the directions. And when we get close, where I'm trying to find that last turn, or do I turn into the plaza here or over there? I have to tell her, like, please turn it off. I have to focus on this. She's like, oh, you can't drive with music on. I'm like, it's not that. It's just, but it's, she teases me on that one. But it's one of those things that illustrates that the same action of driving in 2 different contexts can take a completely different effort level for the brain. And so how do we work with the laws of nature rather than against it to help us move in the direction of emotional health?
So you're saying that the same thing can happen when we practice going deeper in our minds, where if we do that often enough, we can essentially have, these 5 different things that normally would be super stressful, and that just becomes the norm going forward.
An example here is I didn't even know how hard I was on myself for the vast majority of my life until it was pointed out to me. I just thought that was the way we all are.
Yeah.
And yes, a lot of us tend to be a little hard on ourselves. I think I was taking it to another level because when a mental health professional says you're a little hard, from a loving place, this is somebody I knew. So
and you need people to tell you that.
Yeah, she said, you're harder on yourself than
you should be.
Anyone I've met or worked with. I was like, okay, that's perspective, right? And that was such a normal thing that I would just talk to myself and beat myself up over with certain language, certain everything else. And so when you get to the root cause of that and you do work like, say, EMDR or whatever else to help you get there, when you can then get to a place where you can, say, as an entrepreneur or a creator, you're going to make mistakes. It's going to be challenging. There are going to be opportunities to learn from. But all of a sudden, it stops being an opportunity to beat yourself up, and it becomes an opportunity to learn. And the language that you use is kind and compassionate and forward-looking, and also learning from the moment. By default, it doesn't take effort after a while. It just becomes the way you do things.
Right.
Right? And so to be hard on myself now in the same way as I used to be for most of my life would be, I don't even know if I could do it. It would be acting.
Yeah.
Right? So how does that happen? Got to unwire, rewire.
Interesting. And it's interesting, too, because you talk about how it's more than just a mindset. While mindset is important, there's action that has to be taken. Like, it has to be coupled with action. Otherwise, it's just wishful thinking.
Right.
You talk and talk, and you don't actually take the steps to move forward.
Right.
And so, no, I think that that's great. And I think that, so the bridge strategy, which we've talked about extensively, essentially has 5 building blocks. There's blueprint, all about the mindset, lay the first brick, it's all about initiative, taking action, lean into who you are,
Right.
your strengths, complete their bridge. That's the part about working together instead of looking for someone to give you what you want.
Right.
Try to give other people what they need,
Right.
and that sort of
Right.
thing. The last one is reinforce and review. So perfect bookends with the blueprint, which is basically the mindset. You need to get rid of the limiting beliefs. But that reinforce and review, you have to be able to look back non-judgmentally
Right.
and objectively go, okay, where did I go wrong and how can I fix it?
Right.
And where did I go right?
Mhm.
Recognize both.
Yeah. Why did we win? Why did we lose?
Exactly.
You know, sometimes, to take a sports example, right? You could have a team that won a game, right? But did you win the game because you did everything well? Or did you win because the other team turned the ball over, made those mental mistakes, and, you know, you were able to take advantage of it and win? Because if you just look at it as a win, okay, great, we're in good shape. You go into the next game, you get spanked.
And you're like, what
Right?
happened?
What happened? Because you have to be able to understand, why did we win, why did we lose? On the flip side, if you lost the game, but you realize, my goodness, you know, we did everything the right way, and sometimes the ball just bounces in. And now you know that, okay, there's maybe a handful of things that we can slightly improve, but generally, if we played a game like that, we might win 9 out of 10 times. Well, this was the 10th time. You got to understand, but that doesn't happen unless you reflect and not just look at the outcome. You have to look at the process.
100%. 100%. Oh, I love that. So I want to talk about your book.
Yeah.
The Emotionally Healthy You. Is that
Yep.
what it's called? So tell us about what's in that book. What's the main focus? What's it trying to accomplish?
Yeah. So the structure overall is what I call the 5 pillars of emotional health. Your psychology, the study of yourself, the truth systems, the beliefs that you have about yourself and the world around you. This is the lens through which we see the world. Every input, every sensory input that we take in, every pattern that we recognize from those sensory inputs, and all the meanings that we have created about that over the course of our lifetime, how can we examine those to see which ones are serving us and which ones don't? And the willingness to change some of them is not always the easiest thing, but things like emotional intelligence, history of trauma, all of these things factor into that element of psychology. Number 2, relationships. Anyone that's done any personal development work knows, right? You're the average of the 5 people and ideas that you spend the most time with. That drastically impacts your emotional health. It's not just the people, but it's the mentality, the approach that they take to life. And when you up-level that group, things change. 95% of, we talked about the energetic needs of changing, right? It's difficult. 95% of people are what I call past protectors. We've created a construct, a lens through which we see the world. We don't want to change that because it takes effort.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with anyone. Nothing is wrong. Actually, you're being a human being, the way we were designed to be.
Yeah, that's how
right?
you're
There's
supposed to
absolutely nothing
function.
wrong. However, it may not serve us, and so we protect the past. And this is generally why things like political views, musical tastes, stuff like that don't change that much over the course of our lifetime.
Right.
It's like, we'll just say, 90s music was the best, but, okay, 80s music was pretty good too. Fine. But, it's things like that. 5% of people are what I would call growth seekers, people that will constantly question what they know, examine the construct through which they see things or experience things, and say, is this true? Am I learning something new that I ought to revise what I feel about myself or this person or that group or this situation, whatever it is, and to be conscious of that. So if 1 out of 20 people is a growth seeker, we got to surround ourselves with more growth seekers.
Right.
Hard to find, but we tend to stick together too. And that's partially one of my goals with the Emotionally Healthy Company program is helping businesses become a group of growth seekers, and now people at work are always seeking to become the best version of themselves.
Yeah.
It makes it so much easier. Now they go home to their families, and that's how you create powerful relationships that way. But the other aspect of relationships in the emotional health pillar is there's some people that we can't cut out of our lives. Family, right? So,
Right.
and so how can we show up with compassion and understanding, and the willingness to understand rather than to blame, so that we can create a space where that person might start to become the best version of themselves. And that might sound impossible. Oh, so and so in my family has always been this way. You would be surprised.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised what happens when you show up differently consistently, right? So relationships. Number 3,
Yeah.
Nutrition. 90% of the neurotransmitters, the chemical messengers that travel between neurons that regulate how we think, act, and feel, we outsourced that work millions of years ago. We don't make most of them. The bacteria, viruses, fungi, protozoa, all these things that live in our gut, called the gut microbiota, their genetic material is called the gut microbiome, codes for all of these, 90 to 95% of the neurotransmitters, the serotonin, dopamine, GABA, etc., 39 of them. And our gut health is so intricately tied to our emotional health. If you had a penny for every one of those organisms that live in our gut, right, and we started making a tower, that tower would go from here to the moon and back 143 times.
What the heck?
It is, and that alone, as we're learning in the research just in the last few years, is a huge reason for why, you and I might react to, let's say, strawberries completely differently.
Yeah.
If you look at our genetic material, us and a chimpanzee are different by 1.5% of our genes.
Yeah.
So imagine you and me, it's like almost nothing.
Right.
And yet there is a lot of how we react to the world around us that's a little bit different, right? And so as we start to explore the microbiome, that's really critical. Now, you treat your gut well, your emotional health improves, but so does immune function, so does metabolic balance, so does hormone balance.
That's crazy.
And it's incredibly powerful.
We could have a whole other episode.
That's a whole
which we should.
topic in and of
we
itself.
should definitely have another episode
Absolutely.
later on.
It is
about
vital,
nutrition.
and that's how I came to emotional health myself.
Awesome.
Was through nutrition. And number 4, sleep. We talked about it a little bit earlier.
Yes.
It's the first thing to go when we're busy, but we talked about we're made for nature, right? Well, we sleep 1/3 of our lifetime. If we're out in nature and we're sleeping, we're susceptible to predators, natural disasters, competing tribes, whatever it is, right? And yet we still do it. Why? Maybe it's important. Maybe we need this, right?
Right.
And so, as a recovering, Team No Sleep guy myself, it has been the biggest factor to restoring a lot of my own hormone balance.
Yeah.
Was really learning how to get good sleep.
Yeah.
Right. So that's powerful. So number 5 pillar of emotional health is body movement. Motion dictates emotion, and not necessarily just from an exercise standpoint. If you look at the blue zones are areas in the world that people have the highest concentration of centenarians, which are people who live to 100 years old and beyond. And they're all across the world, whether it's Sardinia, Loma Linda, California, Okinawa, Japan. And when you look at the aspects of their lifestyle, what are some of the reasons why they live so long? Because again, genetically they're very diverse. As you look at the body movement area, it's not necessarily that they exercise all the time. It's that they're in constant low-grade motion. Maybe they're working in the fields. Maybe they walk or bike to the store. Things that keep them just moving. And when we are not feeling our best and we need a quick shift in how we're feeling, body movement can be the way to shift out of a negative state and into something that's a little bit more empowered.
Interesting. Because you said I wrote this down. You said motion.
Dictates emotion.
Motion dictates emotion.
Yeah.
Interesting. Oh, so continue.
So, how can we incorporate a little bit more body movement, low grade body movement, into our daily life? You know, whether it's using a sit stand desk or whether it's when our watches and Fitbits and stuff tell us it's been an hour, go walk for a few minutes. Do it,
Exactly.
like actually do it,
But
and
even just for a few
those things make a
minutes.
big difference. Yeah, just it breaks the stagnation. And so psychology, relationships, nutrition, sleep, body movement, that's the fundamental core that I'm talking about throughout the book. And then what we go through, because it's the emotionally healthy you, how to own your past and love your future.
Oh
And
my
so it's about
gosh.
how to use these specific approaches, understanding, the framework for joy, how expectations can really rob us of joy, and all these other aspects of beating imposter syndrome, things along those lines. And
Right.
so I think there's something in there for everybody.
I know I'm
And
excited to read it.
this is I haven't said this publicly before. This will be the first. This will be the
Hey.
first in a series, so I'm really excited for
So all 10 of
the
you
topics
will
to
get to know
come.
what this is. I'm just sorry. Just kidding. Maybe 15.
So
Go on.
yeah, so that'll be it'll be a lot of useful information that you can apply in your life and see where it takes you. Because I really believe that there's the approaches that we have to mental health right now are generally in the counseling, psychotherapy side, or in the psychiatry side. And both are needed and necessary for certain people, certain times. I do think the counseling, for one, is just valuable for anyone.
Right, of course. I think everybody needs therapy. So
Yeah.
often we treat it as a reactive
I certainly did.
treatment.
Like, I needed EMDR at a certain point in my life, right?
EMDR, you said that?
Eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So it's a way to. Have you ever felt that disconnect between, let's say, your rational mind and your emotional? It's like you're trying
Oh,
to talk
100%.
yourself
Are you
down
kidding
off
me?
a cliff.
Oh, yeah.
Because like it's really not a big deal, but I'm still freaking out,
I
man.
know, yeah.
And so it's a way of really understanding and reprocessing past events that lead to certain autonomic reactions and getting them a little bit more in line with our conscious higher self.
Yeah.
So a really powerful form of therapy. At the same time, those don't address a lot of the fundamental, like the nutrition aspect, right? If doing all of that, but we're still harming the gut microbes that produce serotonin, right? What are we doing here? Or if we're constantly putting ourselves around people who are not into becoming their best self, it's going to hold us back.
Right.
If we don't move our body enough, how is that going to? So we need a very comprehensive approach that includes all of these things, right? And is used in the right manner and at the right times, all that stuff. And so I think here's the thing though, in the end, healing is very simple. 5 pillars of emotional health, right? It's just not easy. Healing is simple. It's not easy. And the goal with the book is just to make it a little bit easier.
I love that. Because I know, so for me, depression, suicidal thoughts, ideations, I mean, that's something that I've been through, and it's scary because it felt so foreign. You talk about the rational versus the emotional. Just because it's emotional doesn't mean that it's not real.
Right.
And so it was this crazy time where I felt like they were these two separate beings.
Yeah.
I was the one in that rational going, what the heck is happening with my life,
Right.
Luckily I was able to get help from physicians and family and friends
Wonderful.
and all that really helped me through that. But it's still something that I go through. Right.
Right.
Recently though, you talk about those, so you in Emotionally Healthy You, in this conversation we've talked about the different things that you need to do in order to essentially give yourself the best chance of overcoming those things. That was something that recently, as I've found this passion for what I'm doing, You know, not to say that I haven't done things that I've enjoyed, but bridging divides is where my calling is.
Yeah.
The thing that gets me up in the morning.
Yeah.
You know, the thing that gets me through those obstacles where I go, no, I want to get through that because I want what's on the other side. I really want that. Getting to this point, I go, I can't afford to not be emotionally and mentally healthy.
Mm-hmm.
I've got too much to do.
Yeah.
You know, and so I start looking at nutrition, sleep, cognitive therapy.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
taking myself through these exercises, meditation. How can I, you know, equip this machine?
Okay, let me ask you this with the meditation.
With the best way.
When you started doing it, did you find, I can't, this is not for me?
Oh, honestly, I loved it.
Okay, right from the get-go. That is something I hear sometimes, actually a lot.
I think it's because
My mind races too much. It's so hard to do this,
Oh,
this
and my
mindfulness
mind does.
practice.
So my brother, love him to death. I talked about him before. He is the Hedgehog Investments, the investment company. Matt, love you, brother. But we have really, really deep conversations as well. And so we've talked about, you know, mindfulness, meditation, everything like that. And he really put it very well for me in a way that kind of helped me calm down.
Right.
He said, imagine essentially a river, and you're sitting on the edge, relaxing against a tree, super chill,
Yeah.
and your thoughts are that river.
Yeah.
But you don't try to stop it. Don't try to stop the river and
Yeah.
hold on to as much of that as you can.
Yeah.
Just let it go. If
Yeah.
something comes in your mind, let it come in.
Right.
The point of meditation is not to stop thinking.
Right.
It's to just calm down.
Yeah.
You know, and so for me, I can have all those thoughts come in, but then I just let them go.
Right.
And so that allows me to just to stop that racing.
Yeah.
So I think that helped me a lot.
So it's a
to start with
reframing
that.
of what the whole process is
Yes.
about, right?
Yes.
And like I tell people, similar to that, meditation is not about stilling the mind. It's about noticing. It's like this little helium balloon that's floating away. Bring it back, bring it back, bring it back. The more you practice bringing it back, the less it strays. And even when it strays, because it will stray, you bring it back. You bring it back without judgment. And so,
Instead of being like, why
but,
can't I just
but the reason I
concentrate?
brought that up is this, right? That's not easy.
Yeah.
It's not an easy thing to learn and master. And I think this is the part that's missed, is when we talk about all these hacks and whatnot that can help us. Why? Like, why are you doing it? If you don't have a strong enough reason, and it's not directly necessarily associated with the reason why you're engaging in a mindfulness practice or eating better or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's this higher level understanding of what your life is about. And so there's 4 aspects that I think are important to understand in terms of our needs for emotional health. And obviously we have, Maslow's hierarchy of needs and all these other models that are excellent for understanding what we need as human beings. And one of the things, so just 4 areas that I like to focus on: stability, the roof over our head, food in our belly, financial stability, all of those things to just make sure that, life is not in upheaval all the time.
Yeah.
At the same time, there's another edge of that spectrum, which is if things get too stable, they get stale and boring. And so we need some degree of excitement to offset that.
Yeah.
But somewhere on that spectrum is a sweet spot for each of us. Some people are more thrill seeking. Some people want more. Yeah.
Oh,
and then there's me on the other side of it that like, I like,
all that. Oh,
yeah.
yes.
So I like to selectively, push myself out of my comfort zone, but not all things at the same time, because then I know my mind, it gets too overwhelming.
Yeah.
Now, if I stay comfortable, that gets overwhelming in the other direction,
Yeah, it's
right? And so it's understanding ourselves and just understanding where on that spectrum we fall. Belonging, right? The need that we have to belong to our families, our tribes, right? Our communities, our workplaces, and ultimately ourselves, right? Because in belonging comes love, comes connection, comes how we fit into this world that we live in, right? And when we feel isolated, in any capacity without belonging, we struggle in our emotional health, in our needs. Growth. Now, I mentioned that we're not wired to grow, but the human spirit wants to grow.
Oh, yeah.
If you're not growing, you're dying, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so this is almost swimming against the default current of stability. But again, it's understanding what growth looks like for you that creates that excitement.
Right.
But we always want to feel like we're a little bit better today than we were yesterday. It doesn't have to be much, right? You know, the 1% thing every day, right?
Law of marginal gains.
And so that's really important. And then ultimately purpose,
Yes.
right? The need for purpose. And that one is so powerful because you talked about this podcast, right? And you feel like this is your purpose. This is why you're here, right? Everything that you have gone through in your life, this goes for you listening too. Nobody in the world, the history of humankind has gone through your set of experiences, the events of your life, the tragedies, the triumphs, the victories, the heartbreaks, the skills, the deficiencies. That beautiful mix is an N of one, not just right now in the 7 billion people on Earth, but all the people that have ever come before us. In that uniqueness lies a certain combination of gifts that each one of us has. And the moment we can figure out what that is and figure out how we can put that gift out into the world, maybe not individually ourselves, maybe it's with working with people that we feel aligned with that mission, but we bring our skill set to that mix, whatever it is, right? When you live a life of purpose and you have a reason to be here and a reason to get your butt out of bed every morning to go make a difference, changing the way you eat, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe it's not easy for me to go to the gym every day. So here's what I structured. Hired a trainer, and my wife and I go together. It's together time as a couple, right? And 3 times a week, I know that I'm going to get my butt kicked, right? That would not happen on its own.
Yeah.
At least for any sustained amount of time. You structure your life and you're willing to make these changes because we got to put our gifts out into the world.
Yeah.
People need it.
Yeah.
And whatever that is, we find it, it's a beautiful life from there on out.
Oh, 100%.
Oh, by the way,
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that it's smooth. Doesn't mean that it's easy.
No way.
Doesn't mean it's pain-free.
It
Pain
can't
will
be.
happen.
Yeah.
Pain will happen. Suffering is optional.
I love that. And I think that it shouldn't be smooth. It shouldn't be easy because, as we know, I mean, if you're never exercising your muscles by putting them through pain and struggle and that conflict,
Right.
then you won't grow.
Right.
You know, and so you have to be broken down. You have to pass through the fire to burn away the crap.
And it's not just us. It's nature.
Yeah.
You know, in nature, when a lightning strikes a tree in a forest and that forest fire spreads, so much devastation.
Yeah.
So many animals' lives are lost. Plants that die and perish in that. It's sad and it's devastating. And what happens after that too?
Regrowth.
Right. It's the cycle of nature. And that happens within ourselves too. Parts of us must be let go when they no longer serve us. You know, the tools that we have built, the lens through which we see the world, that allowed us to, you know, in my own life, grew up feeling like I was not good enough for my parents. Not because they did anything to, prove that or demonstrate that.
Yeah.
A small event here, a small event there. As a little kid, you make up a story to explain that, and then you look for evidence to support that growing up. Eventually, that became my own voice, and you become extremely hard on yourself. But what was the flip side of that? How I coped was I worked so hard and mixed that with whatever intelligence I was given, right? And so, okay, I double majored in Ivy League school. I left there and started working at one of the big Wall Street investment banks, worked my way up, right? I was successful in what I did in a really difficult time to be in that industry. And I was burned out at the same time. It gave me a work ethic that was unparalleled, but eventually it doesn't serve you anymore. Not the work ethic, but the reason that drove it. The I'm not enough stopped serving me in my highest good. And so I had to say, what if I am good enough? What if I've just been telling myself this? What if the life that I've always wanted, the person that I always wanted to be, what if it is possible? The only thing holding me back was me.
Yeah.
And so, did the work ethic go away? No, actually, it's just driven by a different purpose. It's not driven by, I have to prove, I've got to achieve because I don't feel good enough. No, it's not driven by that. It's driven by, I want to put some good out into the world.
It's like a higher level.
Yeah. What am I made of? What am I capable of?
Yeah.
How much impact can I make? That is inspiring. That's an inspiring way to work.
100%. And honestly, that's a perfect segue into the last segment here, because we're approaching the end of our time, which is the positivity prize fighter segment. One of my favorite parts of the show.
Yeah.
Because positivity to me is, I'm a super positive person. And so a lot of people have a hard time seeing me as someone that went through depression and suicidal ideations and all this other stuff. But positivity to me is not having rose-colored glasses on all the time.
Right.
It's not stuffing down those negative feelings and emotions because you can't put on anything but a happy face.
Right.
It is when life punches you in the face, knocks you on your butt, are you going to get back up and keep fighting because you believe that it's worth fighting for and that you know that you will get through it?
Yeah.
That's positivity in my mind.
Right.
That is productive positivity instead of toxic positivity, right? So you don't lose a prize fight by getting knocked down. You lose by not getting back up. So you talked a little bit about some difficult times, but what's a time in your life where you would say is a positivity prize fighter moment for you, where life knocked you on your butt and you had to go, is it worth fighting for? And you ultimately chose yes, because you're here still.
I got to give you 3.
Okay.
In high school, I was overweight. I was awkward. I was not popular. Drew 0 female interest. But I was really good, especially in math and science. So I was a smart kid. That's what I hung my identity on. Skipped a grade, all that stuff. I go to college. I'm 16 years old. And
then there's me. I got held back in 3rd grade.
we balanced out, right? But I went there, and this is a top 10 university in the country, and they grade on a curve. So it doesn't matter if you get a 90%, if that's the mean, then you're going to get a B or a B minus or C plus, depending on whatever. So I got my first B's and C's in my whole life, and
my life sucks.
The identity of being the smart kid, the one thing I held my hat on, was gone. And so for the first time in my life, depression. Now, it took a long time to get out of that, right? Long story short, landed on my feet, started working, 21, I started working at a Wall Street investment bank. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had value again. I was able to contribute. I was able to grow. I worked so hard. Already in an industry where everybody works so hard, I cranked it up a notch. And I was rewarded for it. Worked a few years, got to a point where I'd paid off my parents' credit card debt, my own student loans. I was giving more to charity than I ever thought I could at that age, but I hated the man in the mirror. And despite having my own apartment and all the things that,
Measures of success.
yeah, the measures of success, you should be happy because you have all these things. And why am I so miserable?
Yeah.
Right? And so I hit another rock bottom. This time, because I had gone through the first round, I could kind of feel that darkness coming back. And it gave me just enough of a scare to go, okay, I need to make sure I don't go all the way down this road again.
So that's cool.
I need to be alert for what that sign might be. And that sign showed up in the form of my sister. I saw her after a 3-month span. I was severely struggling with my weight. I did P90X, insanity, like all those things back then.
P90X. I don't even know if people know what that is anymore.
I know.
It was, like,
it was
super
a thing
popular.
back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And it was a great program, but I just plateaued and, changed my diet, but it didn't really. I see her after 3 months, and she'd lost 30 pounds. Cystic acne cleared up. She looked incredible.
Jeez.
So whatever you did, I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And so, because I was at rock bottom, willing to do anything, right?
It's interesting.
So
you can use those moments.
You can use those moments. Never, ever let your pain go to waste. It is our greatest teacher. Do not let pain go to waste. And so in that moment, I said, whatever you did, I'm going to do. I started changing the way I ate. I was on the way to losing 100 pounds. In the process, the people at work were noticing, and and they're asking what I was doing. I kind of gave some recipes and stuff like that, and yeah, they lost weight, but type 2 diabetes, hypertension, chronic migraines, cholesterol issues, all this stuff started going away. So I don't know what this is. I don't know what's happening. I don't even know what I'm doing, but this is really satisfying. For the first time in my life, I feel fulfilled in helping somebody in this way. How do I make this my career? Right? Opportunity. Found out about naturopathic medicine, moved here to Arizona 10 years ago now, go to medical school. The one thing I wanted in my whole life more than anything else was a meaningful relationship, right? Who do I meet? First year of medical school, right? Love of my life, married now 5 years almost. And so we go through medical school, and we got engaged right at the end. We had a talent show, and I got myself inserted in the last slot. Performed a couple songs at the end of that. I got down on a knee and called her, and proposed in front of like 160 of our friends. So she couldn't say no.
Yeah.
But anyway,
good strategy.
But 18 months later, we were to get married after we graduated medical school. And after I had gone through so much growth and change and crafting a vision of my ideal self, I thought I had made it, right? But when you go through the ringer, that's when life squeezes you just like a towel, right? To see if there's any water left in it. And that's what happened. Under normal circumstances, I wouldn't have realized that there was still work to be done. Financial stress, right? Am I going to be a good enough husband? What am I going to, am I going to be good at business? And all these questions started coming back. And that's when I needed the EMDR. But here's the thing, was I felt that darkness coming back, right? Feeling like I was letting my fiance at the time down in all the different ways. As that darkness started creeping back, now for the third time, this was different because I knew both times in the past set the stage for a launch pad that I did not know was coming and could not have been possible if not for those moments, right?
Yeah.
And so, and I came across this quote years later. Steve Jobs had said many years ago, he said, you can't connect the dots in life looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you just have to trust that at some point in your future, the dots will connect.
Oh, man, that's good.
And that, I would say, is the prize fighter moment. It's when life becomes challenging, right? There is opportunity in everything. If things are going well, be grateful, right? Use that as an opportunity to say, okay, I got a little bit of peace right now. How can I grow?
Yeah.
I have a client who, he comes in one day, he's a very successful professional, and he comes in one day, he's in his 50s, right? And he goes, I think I figured out what my issue is. I've made my life too comfortable over these years.
The golden handcuffs.
Too comfortable.
Yeah.
Right? And so when things are going well, create a little bit of growth, a little bit of discomfort. When life is knocking you down, look for the opportunities. What is this situation allowing me to do that I would not be able to do otherwise?
100%. Oh, I love that. Thank you. Yeah, I've noticed that with myself. I'm having gone through depression, suicidal ideations, all this other stuff. I am way more aware
Yeah.
of what I'm feeling, and like I can forecast when
Right.
something's going to happen.
Yeah.
Because I go, oh, you talked about this, or
Yeah.
like you recognized kind of that darkness coming in. You go, okay, let's brace.
Right.
Batten down the hatches. 'Cause
Or
you
it
know
gives
what's
you
coming.
that now, right? When I feel okay, life might be going in a surprise direction that wasn't anticipated. We can call them problems, whatever you want to call them,
Yeah,
right?
we'll call them opportunities. Like you said.
Opportunities,
Yeah, that's
exactly. And so you look at when you see that coming, and you know what it takes for you as an individual, what makes you unique, what it takes for you to be emotionally healthy in those 5 pillars. Do those things.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the time not to go, eat the comfort food. This is the time to make sure you go outside and get some sunlight on your face in the morning, whatever it is. The things that allow you to feel your best, double down on those things, right?
Awesome.
If you can't do all of them, do some of them.
Yeah.
But when you know that those times are coming, like, how do you avoid burnout? How do you solve these emotional health challenges? You put in the work today so that you build that toolbox so that when pain inevitably happens in life, you are prepared.
Yeah, I love that. Well, oh my gosh, Dr. K, absolutely loved having you. So where can we find you?
You can find me on social media, Dr. Karthik Ramanan, on all the platforms, and my website, drkarthikramanan.com, for individuals, business owners, companies. I do have a Insiders Club where access to all my emotional health courses, a private community that's not on Facebook. It's a nice little isolated community there of growth seekers. But also, any of your listeners can download the first chapter of the book for free.
Yes.
drkarthikramanan.com/books. You can download the PDF of the first chapter, and
Perfect.
you'll be first to know when it's available later this year.
Beautiful. And we'll make sure that we include all the tags and the link to be able to download that as well. So,
Wonderful.
Dr. K, love you, brother. And for you guys, I hope you guys have enjoyed the conversation with this guy. Absolutely amazing. Remember, you are enough. And none of you are broken. Your mind and your emotions are doing what they should, but there is a higher level, and you can get there by doing the things that we've talked about today. So, I love you guys. Keep being amazing. See you next time.